Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to the channel RPG with DBJ. I'm glad you could join me here. For those who do not know, this show is simulcast on Twitch, YouTube, and the audio gets punched out to our own Discord server. So you can join the show on any and or all of those platforms. Thank you very much for being here. Now, we are a long discussion content channel, and we are going through a series called a cutting class series where we take a look at the classic Dungeons and Dragons character classes and we break them apart, and we do this all week long. And today is Thursday, which stands for Third Pillar Thursday. And Third Pillar Thursday is our attempt to delve into something that's one of the things that it's something I hold dear to myself, and that is the third pillar of gaming, where the first two pillars correspond to combat and social interaction, but the third part, the yeah, I'm back to using my glasses again. My vision has been altering just because of sugar levels, diabetes, and whatnot. So yeah, and it's weird. It's really weird, but thank you for noticing. The Yeah, for some reason my eyesight spiked better, and then whatnot. So this week we are taking apart. We are taking a deep dive into paladins, and I will say without, because this isn't really my fault, I will say that yesterday's world building Wednesday about paladins, I think we, in a very short amount of time, I think we developed an extremely interesting world. And for third pillar, the third pillar of exploration, because we are talking about paladins, and more specifically, not paladins, but oath keepers and oath breakers and such, that I think we can have a really interesting look at what the environment would be like in a world where it happens. Yay! Someone's got their audio back. Yay! I think it was a glitching. I don't believe it was anyone's fault. I think it's just one of those glitch things. But one of the things that we mentioned yesterday that I think really brings into light something today is this idea that words are power, words are life, words are the world. And paladin, the word paladin, as I've mentioned before, has a lot of baggage to it because it assumes a specific historical reference to a people and a culture and a faction, a profession, rather than the idea of people who take oaths and those oaths give them great power. Now, right, and even crusaders even bring to light a specificity that I think is a little bit, it can pigeonhole us into one particular type of behavior. I'm sure there are Arctic Inuit people who are every bit oath takers, as well as Zulu warriors or jungle fighters in, from I don't know, Thailand or something like that nature. So yeah, I believe in this world more so than any other world. When we were creating them, I think words have power. Words, I believe words and truths and promises and breaking those promises, I think, would have far more of a dramatic effect in this world than a little bit. And even going to the fact of, like, we talked about this world, the distant past being a paradise, but now today it's just broken cities and ruins. And I can imagine that the people who promise to defend a city, when they're gone, that I could see it, shy of seeing a city crumble before your eyes, I could see it happening near, when I say instantly, like within weeks, days, even hours. Like the walls start to crumble, and rot and mold grows up the walls, and moss and everything, and because of people breaking their word. And I believe it would be pretty cool to see the world changed that way. We've talked about people changing, seven deadly sins and oozes relating to like sloth and uh, major predators being related to like vengeance and people who are break those oaths with themselves and their bodies physically changing because of lying, cheating, stealing, or even being my brain is starting to fart. Breaking an oath, even though you know it's the right thing to break the oath, breaking that oath anyway. A soldier that promises to be out on the field of battle, but instead returns home to take care of their loved ones, right, and get them out of danger. Yes, they are doing the right thing, but they are also breaking their oath. Rickard says, oath stones, sites where oaths are sworn, where you bind your promises and oaths to the weave of the tapestry of time. Oh, hells yes. Hells yes. I could imagine in the distant past, maybe there's like these giant black monoliths with words like carved on the sides of them, but the words aren't carved physically, but they're said and you could read them. People go up to them and read them, but then over time they've been covered by moss and debris and vines, and people have to find them to reenact or reestablish the promises that were once made. I mean, that would be a pretty interesting origin story for a paladin like oath like character who zero level discovers this great monolith and realizes that, whoa, the world sucks because these people broke their promises. Well, I'm not going to let that happen. And just speaking those words energizes them to become this great hero when normally they would have been a weakling or cast aside or something. Gaster Two Soul says, perhaps there are certain promises that you can't make because they can be so destructive. I would agree with you that maybe one of the origins in this world, and I'm being a little tongue in cheek here, but follow me on this, that the classic Keep on the Borderlands adventure in the Caves of Chaos was a first through third level adventure way back in the old days, and you would go into the caves, and each cave system had certain kinds of goblinoids in it. It was a very, very basic beginning kind of thing, and it did have a little bit of a meta story to it, but that's unimportant. The important thing is Gygax had written into that module that there were rooms where there were orc and goblin babies and pregnant women, and more often than not, that became our first interaction when, first, second edition Dungeons and Dragons existed, as to the importance of, and I will say capital A, alignment or not using alignment, and the murder hoboism that came about from that. Because there was no answer for it, it just existed. And how people handled it changed by the table. I would say that, and I'm going to get to the chat just a minute. I will say that it would be interesting for the paladins of this ancient world to have done the murder hobo thing, right? Like, oh, well, of course they're evil babies. They're going to grow up to be evil. We're just going to kill them all. And everyone's like, you know what? Defending our land and driving away evil was one thing, but murdering babies and pregnant women is pretty nasty. No matter what you think might happen, that's a pretty nasty thing, and maybe that became a downfall. Like, oaths are power incarnate, but like Gaster says, perhaps there's promises you can't make, and they made these promises to do a thing, and there could be regrets either by the combinations of the warriors themselves, the legacy that they brought, the people that wanted them to make an oath that way, and then realized that they kind of sacrificed their own soul. So I like the idea of like taking a sarcastic truism of old Dungeons and Dragons and like fast forwarding the time, like, yep, they kind of became the bad guys in many ways, or the downfall of society. Gaster says, Two Soul says, and I'm not talking about the promise itself. I'm talking about what happens when you break these promises. Oh, hell yeah. There's an oath or promise you have in your own soul that basically prevents you from doing the one awful thing. Imagine a limit on how much bad you can do. And when you break that oath of your soul, it changes you, turning you into a horrid monster. Oh, yeah. I would do anything, but I won't do that. The song, Meatloaf. But yeah, it could be there maybe a criminal has made a promise not to do a thing, and everyone knows they are a murderous, tack on some heinous acts by someone, but this criminal's promised not to do a thing, and the gods have blessed this person, and everyone's like, why do they get the blessing? They're a monster, you know? And by breaking those, like you said, breaking those Osa's promises, they start to transform into horrid monsters. And we also talked about legacy oaths as well, that you might, someone in the past has broken a promise, broken their word, and others are punished for it. Unfairly, sure, but that may be the case in this world. That, like Rickard had brought up, maybe there are random individuals that are like branded or have a birthmark or something that tells others of the promises broken in this world. Rickard says maybe that's why oath breaking is such a big deal, because you are destroying the tapestry that has been woven. Oh, hell yeah. Especially if you take the idea of the gods have spoken the world into existence. I suppose you could pull a little bit of a biblical, let there be light and there was kind of thing, where each of the gods has spoken. The elemental gods have spoken upon the land, and there was land, and the storm gods yelled out in anger, and the storms, there was rain and lightning or something. You could come up with some vague elder god kind of thing, and then maybe the keystone of the whole thing was brought where words were given to mankind, and maybe that last word was a promise: don't break your promises. And then boom, terrible things happen. I think in this world we can do something, and I'm going to bring up something mechanical, that follow me on the pathway that I go. More often than not, when it comes to exploration, traps, obstacles, hazards. You guys know I talk about third pillar all the time, because we have, I don't know, well over 100 hour-long videos about third pillarisms and exploration. But we often don't. Fifth edition has saving throws, and we know the usual: strength saving throw, dex save, wisdom save, and whatnot. And the first 5 statistics really fit into the environment. An intelligence save to navigate a place that's confusing, a wisdom save to not be distracted or confused or whatnot, or like a willpower kind of thing, a strength save to lift, move, push, shove over heavy debris like a fallen tree or a rock slide or something. A dex save, dex, the gold standard of Dungeons and Dragons, where you can dodge, roll, flip, balance out of the way of lots of hazards. But we don't often see charisma saves. And one thing in the world might be these wounds. I'm going to call them wounds in a relation to what Rickard has talked about the oath breaking, destroying the tapestry, in the sense that there may be something semi-sentient, semi-alive out there in the world, that charisma saves might be very important to navigate through hazards that exist, right? So an example would be a dark wood, and trying to navigate through the dark woods, and we know that there's something alive out there, and more oppressive than just living trees like treants or awakened shrubbery. But I'm thinking almost a living darkness maybe, or the land itself is kind of alive. And if you don't convince the land itself that you need to pass, or that you are not its enemy, or it is harmed in such a way that keeps repeating or living through the same horrors it has over and over again, then you might be affected by said location, meaning like getting lost in the woods, or the trees moving in on you and being trapped by foliage and vines wrapping around your thighs and whatnot. And it's more so than just push, pull, slash, dodge out the way. It may be some, a vast desert where there's like a sandstorm and a face in it. Sure, you could very easily describe that as an elemental, but I'm thinking even grander, where there might be spirits that are either from the PC's own guilt that are like speaking in their ear, or a temptation out in the world that wants them to break their oaths as they get closer and closer to these shattered oath stones and whatnot. And the PCs are trying to bring the world back together. So I think adding some kind of charisma saves of strength of personality, combined with all the other stuff, the navigating raging rivers and picking your way through wrecked cities, and staying hidden out of patrols of dangerous monsters that are twisted and warped by their own broken promises, I think would be a great part of this world. So I'm really liking it. I think Cam got me started on it, and Cameron the other day, and I'm really feeling it now. Gaster Two Soul says, I also do like the idea that maybe the Paladins kind of messed up the land so bad that civilization kind of got ruined, and now these groups of misfits are semi-forced to bring back the Paladins to defeat a great evil. Ooh, and could you imagine the problem with that? You're so funny, Gaster. From the next comment, but could you imagine the pain in so you have these groups of people that have been going around who have destroyed the world, basically from they have no, there is no quarter given. There isn't any like, well, maybe if we win, we might kind of soften our outlook. No. They've basically said kill or be killed. The rest of society gets punished by it, but now people have to bring the Paladins back, understanding that they might be bringing upon themselves the same events that caused the destruction in the first place. And I like that idea. Oh man, Island of Rob Gaming says, hey buddy, first time catching you live. How's it going? I only ever heard you on Red Dice phone. Really? That's a strange place for my voice to have been heard, but I'm glad you could join on in. Yeah, we're live, and we're talking about Paladin. Well, we are specifically talking about the Paladin class, more generally, oaths, and how to incorporate it into the exploration pillar of gaming, which is one of my specialties. That's why I like my 9th cinematic environments book is out now, and still writing. Although I've taken a break a little bit because I'm on a writing assignment for N World, which it's not just me. It's like, I don't know, a dozen other people or more. And hopefully by next year, the Kickstarter will be out for that. I can't wait. Gaster's like, like fighter. I just want to use the toilet. Ruined building. Ha! Nah, get dunked. Go away. Do not pull your pants down around me. But I have to. I can't hold it. Sorry. Gaster says basically the Paladins kind of become major scumbags. Yeah. Now in their eyes, of course, they aren't, but everybody else looks at them like, I mean, you could take like here's an oath, and oftentimes an oath on its surface seems good, but the ramifications of the oath bring us to a point at which, and I'm going to make an analogy here that's probably terrible, but I'm going to go with it anyway. An oath sometimes can come across as the willingly accepted version of a psychosis, right? An oath, a promise, it is our mantra that gets us to go beyond what our instincts tell us to do. So an example would be, there's a military mantra, no man left behind, right? And on its surface, you're like, well, man, that's noble and that's just and everything. But on a practical level, in some ways, it isn't, except for the fact that it works because of the fact that it works against everything that tells you not to do that thing, right? So on one hand, you go, no man left behind, and you're like, okay, you're going to sacrifice 6 people to save one guy. Why would you do that? But then on the other hand, there's a little bit of like an awe and a fear in that, right? Like, whoa, 6 people are going to possibly sacrifice themselves to save one person. I'm kind of scared of that. A person who would do that, willingly go to do something like that. And so there is a power in an oath itself, and there might be like an honor in that kind of oath that the landscape itself may understand. Like, I, we may not agree with what your oath is, but the landscape knows that it's been shaped by these words and recognizes it. Um, hmm, that's weird. That sorry, Rickard's talking about Twitch and YouTube having conflict issues, which I've had in the past. So he said, anyway, he says, what if we take the oath, taking one step further to oath binding? So maybe the land itself can be oath bound. Ooh, that's a good way of like blending. First thing that came to mind, blending druids and paladins. Some old kingdom bound the land itself to protect them against intruders. The kingdom is long since forgotten, but the land is still bound by the ancient oaths. Oh yeah, I mean, and again, the the power of oaths. Maybe it's not. You don't need a mage to magically cast a spell that does a thing that locks the gates to a city. It could be the people just made promises to keep those to protect the city unto death. And so now the city gates are locked. Maybe those people have risen as undead and they are trying to protect a great gift or power or secret, or it's the last bastion of civilization, but it's protected by like hordes of undead that are like soldiers that are there who even beyond death are trying to stop the player characters. And here's where lowercase a alignment gets thrown out the window a bit, because an oath need not be associated with an alignment. It is just a code of honor, and the circumstances change that code of honor, right? The oath to bring about vengeance upon evil is one thing. Using that same oath to rationalize killing children and innocents because you think they might be evil is another thing. And that's where like oaths can really like take on their power, but at the same time, you you almost want to you almost want to shake those people like, okay, it's enough. You know, you can break your promises. And they're like, nope, made the promise, got to keep going, you know. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, even in our own world, there are people who've made promises and oaths to do a thing. And you want to, you all, sometimes you want to, you don't want to dishonor the individual by telling them not to take the oath, but that's often a dramatic turn in the story, right? Where uh, soldier says, "I made a promise to serve with my troops." Soldier comes home. Family's like, "Stay home." Soldier goes, "Nope, I'm going to go back into danger." Family cries, "You need to stay home." Right? That's it. That's a classic story, and you could fill in, you know, replace soldier with firefighter, police officer. I don't know, the security guard, lawyer, doctor, right? It's the whole thing. Doctor, I took an oath to save people. You're never home. You're always at the hospital. And like, yeah, because I just told you, right? Um, Gaster Two Soul says, perhaps there are oaths or promises inscribed into weapons, and that's where we get things like enchanted weapons. Like maybe one sword has a runic carving that says, "Promise I shan't not be sheathed until I cleave." Oh yeah, oh yeah. Matter of fact, all we've gamified magic a lot, but lots of lots of magic and stories and fables were about promises and broken promises or promises that were kept. Hell, the rings, multiple rings from Lord of the Rings, kind of had a similar thing. Like, you know, so many rings were made for the dwarven kings, and so many rings were made for man, and blah blah blah. And while they may not be classic oaths, they were words inscribed that give power. And I could see player characters like the, you know, ignoring the words short and long rest between times, they start making re resetting themselves and their spirits by taking further oaths that grant them these extra capabilities and whatnot, promises to themselves and others that have them move on. You know, a fighter just isn't tough, but they made a promise to never fall, and so of course that's where they get their second wind. You know, or uh, that paladin again gets ready to do the smite. We just call it smite, but what does it look like? It's the I promise to destroy this outer world being, and that's where the power of that, that cleave, that power, that weapon comes from. It's like, if I don't do this, no one will, and I like that idea. Uh, let's see. Rickard says, what if paladins are not only oath takers, and it's only oath bearers that can sanctify the oaths of others? Oath bind the land and other inanimate objects. I feel like that makes perfect sense, right? Like, a group of innocent people, villagers, have escaped from their land. They're going through the wilderness. They get surrounded by enemies, and then the elder of that group speaks with all the innocent people. They know they're about to get slaughtered, and they say a word. That's why I think oaths and curses, banes and boons and things of that nature, I think are hand in hand. And I could see that, like you mentioned yesterday, I could see the land being scarred by it, where those innocent people were like, kill us. Rickard's like, yay, back at the keyboard. Where the land becomes scarred with necrotic energy, or a powerful elder, is killed by these bandits or something, and says, strike us down, and your days shall show no rest. And all of a sudden, they become like wraiths or something after the innocent people are killed in this land, and nothing grows there. It's almost like the earth is like muddy, but it's like blackened sludge, like oily substance or something. And the nasty trees there are all corrupted and whatnot. Like, I could see something like that happening. And the people in the world who are ignoring, or who have ignored these oath takers, are like, whatever. Although there could be a cadre of people who are freedom fighters who don't believe in oaths any longer because of the harm that's been done to the land. And we could really take this and go really far, where when someone says that the land has been shattered, the land might literally be shattered. You go to the end of the cliff, and there's the only thing on the end of the cliff is space, literally, like stars and moons and comets or something. Like, the land could literally be shattered. Portals to other worlds open. The very nature of gravity and light and life might be shifted in this world in such a way that it makes sense that, holding to our hopes and dreams is gone. And now that the very air is poisonous, the once verdant landscape around it is, I don't know, there's a big wall of I don't know, necrotic spirit or something, and it's like it might be a physical barrier, like it literally cuts the land off, and you have to walk through it or navigate around it or something of that nature. I'm really feeling it. And even I know we're talking about the exploration and such. It could be uncovering why a thing is the way it is, right? Like, undead is very common for this, especially undead you can talk to, where unsettled spirits are. There's a reason why they're unsettled spirits, and maybe it's not killing it's not roll initiative, kill the evil spirits. It's let's finish out their story so that we can move on. And that's a very common tropish kind of storyline, and I like the idea of finding a monolith and uncovering the runes that tell about the passage of this time, or the same heinous acts happen over and over again of these roaming bandits of blood-soaked paladins that have been trying to slay evil, and they keep finding more victims to rationalize their pursuit of killing evil rather than laying down their weapons, and it just makes the world even worse. Yeah. Zach's 200 hits. Like, this Stranger Things season 2, in other words. Yep. Yeah. I didn't want to go there, but yeah. Yeah. Gasper Soul says, cravens, mysterious spirits that can never die because they were cowards and destroyed their promises. Not for the best, yeah, but because they couldn't handle it. Cravens try to latch upon the only living thing they can, trying to rip their that mortal's very heart out of their chest so they can feel a living thing in their hands. Dark, and I love it. I love it so much. I love it so much. There might even be players may need to explore the landscape to find consecrated ground, the very few places where the truth and promises and nobility are still there, but it's been covered by dust and ash and destruction, just to find a place to find, a good rest area, a place to recoup themselves both mentally and spiritually, and not that paladins need to even be related to faith and religion, but it might be a way for them to I don't reconstitute, atone, resettle themselves, and I like that a lot. Rickard says, "Whomever enters these lands shall not bear arms against the people of the lands." Might have been all well and good back in the day, but now the land is inhabited by a horde of goblinoids. Yep. You might have fallen soldiers of the old nation rise up to defend the goblinoids due to the bond. Yep, enslaved by the very bond that was supposed to protect the nation from the hordes. Yep, and okay, if we want to go even further with this, and I can hear some players screaming at me, and they haven't even heard what I said. You could change the very rules of our interaction with the world. So, taking Rickard's example about whomever enters these lands shall not bear arms against the people of the lands. What if it's very difficult to fight with a weapon in your hand? You go to swing your sword and your hand gets a strange reaction or a palsy or something, or your weapon heats up and starts to burn the very palms of your hand, and you're like, oh shoot, they made an oath not to take up arms of the people against this land. They are a monstrous horde, like you said, but the PCs can't use weapons, or at least it's very difficult for them, or they have to finagle a way to get around it, or maybe find someone who's an ancient, a descendant of the people who once lived in this land, and get them to acknowledge their promise they are from the land, to then get past the rituals that prevented them from taking up arms against the people in the land in the first place. Yep. Hey, like Zach says, can't just be versus Marshall. Got to apply that to the casters too. Oh hell yeah! And now, mind you, I can hear some players screaming like, "Oh, you're going to nerf my character," but yeah, I think that would be interesting though. All who enter this land can speak no words of uh, um, speak no words unless the first words are of loyalty to the crown. Right now, all of a sudden, no one can speak. All of a sudden, you're completely mute. You can't use verbal components. You can't speak to your allies until you get to the main ruin, chamber of the ancient, I don't know, the Council of Seven that I always bring up, and you must give yourself of loyalty. And there's like ghosts there that used to be them. Like Zach says, it's not really a nerf if it's one specific area. Thank you. I've been saying that for years now. It's just using the environment, make something far more interesting and challenging even. Great. You have disadvantage when casting using your arcane spells and weapons against these people until you finagle a way around it. Fine, deal with it. Be creative. How about I don't know, use our creativity to come up with a way to solve it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, roll with disadvantage. Yep. STFU. And roll with disadvantage. Island of Rob Gaming says, I love the idea of the land making people take an oath under duress. They're in a spot they can't get out of, and seizing the moment to claim people to serve and repair it. Druids, but not druids. Yeah, and that's where I think building this world that we've been using, talking about paladins and oaths and such, I think druids are just a small portion of that. But a well-developed countryside doesn't need to have it doesn't we don't need to use the words to describe what we are, the mechanics to describe what we're talking about. A city could be protected by a druidic cult, but it's all very urbanized, right? Oh man, thanks, Zach. Thank you very much. Oh wow, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that over here on Twitch. you you are the man. I am just the man standing next to the man. Thank you so much, man. Um, well, by the way, for those who don't know, this channel is live on Twitch, YouTube, and our own Discord server. So if there's one of those platforms or multiples of those platforms you'd like to be part of, please do that. Wow, Gaster Two Soul pops in an image of the Cravens. Yeah, I love that. That well, yeah, and by the way, same title, RPG with DBJ. Just look it up. You won't miss it. Okay, Rickard says you. I'm sorry. It could be that a druid player is trying to find a way to end the oath that was placed upon an area of land to free it from the bonds of those who would seek to dominate it, aka civilization. Oh yeah. Absolutely. More fun to buff people in a situation than to nerf them. I agree with that. Make it feel better and also make them feel more involved in the moment. I think just shifting. I personally don't have a problem with a dungeon master, game master, dungeon master saying, "Hey, listen, in these particular situations, you can or cannot do a particular thing." I think it makes perfect sense. Like, remember the other week we read about the Outlander background, and we pretty much assume the Outlander background makes you automatically find food, and that's not the case. It says if there is a potential to find food, you could find it, but the game master says there might not be any. And so I just think having different vectors of success. So I don't know if it's a matter of like just punishing players, like you've got disadvantage on everything, deal with it. Even though I know that's not what Zax was hinting at. I think it's, yes, you do have disadvantage on doing this thing. Here are these other avenues that you can solve the situation. And maybe it's not about, for me, it's not about always every situation being kill or be killed. It's time factors, energy factors, resource factors, MacGuffin factors, where, getting to the monolith to speak the oath is more important than defeating the evil that's hunting you, right? Or going after you. Sure, the barbarian can dish out a lot of damage and one-shot everybody, but maybe it's more effective for the bard to scramble through, 6 rounds of combat without fighting anything just to get to the monolith to end the battle, right? Gaster says Cravens are based off of Ring of Wraiths. I won't lie. That's fine. Yeah. We talked about the whole like, like Zach says, finding food in D&D 5e is only an issue if you don't have a druid at level 1 with Goodberry or cleric at level 5 create food and water. Yeah, I know, easy buttons. Or rangers with passive abilities. Passive abilities are like auto abilities. You never get lost. It's yes, but it's boring, right? Island of Rob says, glad I heard you on his phone. Loving his chat. We do this every day, dude. That's what we do. And please invite your friends or your enemies. The other parts, I think, of exploring the world as well as the harm that could be done to these broken oaths might be finding out what happened in the first place. So I see this having lots of mystery involved in it, and then you could. This is strange for me to say because I'm a very fair person. You could overwhelm the player characters. This might be a world where standing up and just standing toe-to-toe with evil, or rather adversaries, is not going to get you to win this war. It's not. Yes, fighting things toe-to-toe may feel good, but this world sounds to me like eventually you just won't win. There are going to be too many hordes of creatures, too many evil spirits, too many demons, too many celestials that have fallen down. I think it'll just be too much. I'm feeling this world is one in which, sure, you may think fighting waves and waves of these cravens might feel good, but ultimately you want to release them from their prisons, or bring about, saving the innocent people and bringing them back to to civilization or gathering them together so that they make the oaths that protect their lives or something. And I feel like this world gives us the opportunity to do that. Boom boop. Zax 200 says, or you could be a party of lizard folk who just finished an encounter. Yeah. There's some old random lizard folk like, I don't get it. What's all this oath things that these humans are talking about, and the lizard folk are like I don't, no idea, don't get it. All right, let's just take our eggs and get out of here. Yeah, I mean, if you, this is weird to say, but rebuilding a society might be rebuilding the words that created the society in the first place. Or I brought up before where pulling a little bit from movie and television styled Japanese samurai, that upon someone's death, they make an oath or a promise or a curse or, cast words out upon their death. And that's the thing that changes the world in the first place. And so figuring out a way to communicate with these like echoes of the past, or individuals that are overcome with grief or guilt for having broken their oaths or not, or failing, paladins that kept to their oath anyway, but they still failed, and finding these individuals out in the world and bringing them back together might be a thing, that is quite important. I mean, it's weird to say, but heck, maybe rain hasn't fallen for a decade because people gave to the rain spirits and gods, and they made promises and they broke those promises. So it stopped raining. So the PCs might want to bring rain back to the world. And this would be a very good, I think this flowing into this might be a very good way to do more of a tribal prehistory type of game where the players are trying to stitch back together the regular world, an eclipse that never ended, the rains that stopped falling, the constant earthquakes that happen over and over again, the volcanoes that keep erupting and they need to appease the unspoken, unnamed spirits that are out there. Rickard says, a random idea. What if you can steal others' oaths? Ooh. Like they are a physical thing. And I don't mean physical like a trinket, like a physical thing that an oath spoken into the world becomes an oath that can be obtained by someone else. I'm liking that. I like that a lot. Like if you have an oath born, do a ceremony to let you take an oath. Those oaths might be bound not only to you, but an object also exists as a result of your oath. So you could have a rogue trying to steal an oath, or maybe find the oath stone that binds one land to bring it to another land. Ooh, that would be interesting. Like the soldiers who promised to defend their countryside even beyond death are now risen as undead, and a cadre of thieves goes in to steal the oath stone, takes it to an evil, air quotes, evil land. They take it there, and now those noble undead soldiers or spirits or whatever flow from the one city to the other city, following the stone to defend the stone because they kept that oath, and that's where they made the. Ooh, that would be awesome. Or maybe what is it? Ownership is nine. What is the term? Like possession is 9/10 of the law, or something like that. Like, hey, I own it. You got to get pried out of my dead hands. And the PCs are like, okay, because if we do that, remember those soldiers are going to turn on you. That's a good way of solving an issue where the player characters might not be able to solve. Kill the greed dragon. Remember we talked about the greed dragon yesterday. The greed dragon might not be defeated by the PCs, but if they steal the oath stone that the greed dragon is sitting on, then everything turns back upon them. Zach says, it was laugh. It says, laugh out loud. I was just talking about where to get food, actually. Like, okay, smooth skin friends, you say you're hungry, but you won't eat these goblins we just defeated? What the fuck? Yeah, like, why not? We just found food. And they're like, could you not boil the goblin and put the goblin in the pot? Why not? His name's Joe. Sprinkle seasoning. Are you going to eat with us? That's all right. But anyway, I getting into some other things like when it comes to exploration, like traps and puzzles and those kind of things. I could see there. I could see there being okay. Um, Legend of Zelda style obstacles in the world that were created not because a wizard created them, not because someone decided to design some crazy, strange Tomb of Horrors type of a module, but maybe the world itself challenges great heroes to go through different types of obstacles to get to a thing, to do a thing, right? Like the world just created three 10-foot cubes of wood and two 10-foot cubes of stone and one 10-foot cube of iron, right? And you've got to get over the castle wall. And everyone's like, okay, so let's see. If we stack the three cubes first here, and then lift up the other heavier stone cubes on top of the wood cubes, and then lift the extremely heavy iron cube up on top, we can use those as steps to get to the top to get the people over the wall. Like maybe that's a little bit too meta, but yeah, it's the Sphinx answering the Sphinx's riddle. Although you could make this more physical than a little bit, but yeah, you could do something like that. I kind of don't like. I don't like riddle doors because riddle doors close the avenue of success rather than traveling with a riddle, and then at the moment you can figure out the riddle, you get the benefit of it without stopping the action forward. But that's a problem. Yeah, Zax 200 says kind of reminds me of a complex trap where you're fighting the room itself. Oh yeah. Where it's the I don't know, you could go very classic spinning blades or walls that are moving in closer or the random pit traps or you're bouncing across wood timbers over something dangerous and you've got to figure out, okay, so if we move if we all stand on one side of the room, it starts to shift and turn, or if I hit this lever, the floor starts to spin and then I could hit the lever again to get it to stop spinning. Like I understand it seems a little bit meta, but there could be a go through the 12 trials kind of thing to get to the Council of Seven's chambers, to speak the oath upon the land to change the thing and whatnot, like Zach says, doors don't open till you deactivate the mechanism, which is constantly moving itself. Yeah, exactly. Or it's a teamwork thing. No one of us could reach up to get the orb, the glowing orb, to bring it down. That's going to get the dangers to stop in the room. But if we work together and someone gets on someone else's shoulders, who gets on someone else's shoulders, or whatever, we can reach up to get it. But the room is so dangerous, it's like the barbarians going and fighting, I don't know, the horde that's coming through the door. And it's like, hey, barbarian, I get the fact that you're one-shotting those ogres, but we're going to need your help to lift the halfling up to get the orb, right? And you start having, I think we lose sight of using our location to bring about other win conditions. It's either A, attack the undead horde, or B, speak the words for the ritual to get the undead horde to stop. Which one is effective? Which one gets us to win? Maybe both, even, right? And putting those choices in the player's hands, I think, is pretty important, because if we only measure success by damage dealing, then the only people who will succeed are the ones who deal damage, right? And a lot of times we like to measure who's more effective or not in a vacuum. Oh, this character type does more damage. Well, sure, if that's the only way to solve problems in the world. But if talking to things, finding clues, getting the MacGuffin, whether it's an innocent person or a small stone upon which is written a particular thing, if you're able to get the trinkets, the stone, find the place, get to the place in a certain amount of time, in a certain manner, then you can start solving problems. But it's just making sure that we as game masters and dungeon masters don't pre-write the solution. We just make the problems and let the players come up with the creative solutions. If you're thinking, oh, they're going to just get to the monolith and speak the oath, and they're like, I'm not speaking the oath, but I sure will find someone who will. Then let them do it. And maybe it might not turn out the way you want it to, but being creative, letting creativity flow, I think is the best uh, skill to have. Zax 200 says, at later levels, 12 plus, these are the only kinds of traps that are worth throwing in a dungeon. Unless there's a race against the clock, then simple traps are still worthwhile. Once you, hey, Inflatable Cat, once you get past, you youngins don't remember a period of time in Dungeons and Dragons where getting between 8th and, say, 10th level, that was when you got your name level, and that was really when your character was supposed to retire. Since then, we've gotten away from that, and 10th, 11th, 12th level, there's really no difference, right? It's just another number. But there was a period of time in Dungeons and Dragons where when you got to between like 8th to 10th level, 8th to 11th level, based on what character class you had, you were retired. Now, beyond that, you were starting to fight the gods and go off to other planes of existence, and so your average trap wasn't really a thing any longer for you to confront anymore. Yeah, so there was a reason why high level play wasn't a thing, because once you got to like ninth level, the differences between ninth and like 13th level wasn't enough of a difference, and most confrontations were just a matter of scale, right? Like, oh, I can only fight 3 frost giants. Now it's 18 frost giants. It's just a matter of scale, not a matter of intricacies. And I am the self-appointed third pillarist of the tabletop community, and as your self-appointed third pillarist of exploration, I am here to say that we can start to do other things than than just killing things and stuff. Yeah, Inflatable Cat. I'm not going to do it again. I'll save it for next week. Zach says, yeah, I originally cut my teeth on 3.5, like ninth level. K, why are we still playing? Exactly. Yep. And if we are, why is anyone playing something other than a cleric or a wizard? Yeah, the ramp up of power for clerics and wizards really, like, they start out slow, and then they hit the gas and like they shoot up into space. Although now pretty much everybody's a form of a cleric or wizard, so it's kind of, I wish they embraced other ways of solving issues. Yep, like Zach says, I'm rolling the d20 only to see if I get a 1 or a 20, because otherwise I pass. Yep, thank heaven for concentration. And I would contend to you that embracing the environment, you can start adding in things where there are far more choices than they have the ability, more choices than actions to engage in those abilities, right? Like, where you start to complicate sound and how many items you're holding and where you're standing and what you can see. And once you start complicating those things, I think we can start to add more limitations or complications for the PCs to at least alleviate some of the rampant growth that happens. Like, if we often love the idea of PCs climbing up a great cliff to get to the top, but we don't often concern ourselves with, well, what are you holding on to? Do you have one hand free? Are you able to have both a spell focus and components and hold on to a rope and your weapon ready plus your shield? Like, you're gonna have to make a choice, right? And so I like doing those kind of things. Going back to the original reasons of why I even created this cinematic environments in the first place, it was like, does that potion of healing, like, can you drink that slushy? Because it's probably frozen in the Arctic cold, and does it even work the same? So yeah, that's just a big giant circle we went around. And tomorrow is Future Friday, and on Future Friday we talk about science fiction, flowing far more into Eclipse Phase and Altered Carbon, a little bit of The Expanse, but it's just because it's one of my favorite subject matters. And but tomorrow we're gonna go real basic. We're gonna talk about Black Ops. Um, yeah, did you check the expiration date? Yeah, exactly. And why does every healing thing have to be a potion in the first place? It might be different to apply a salve or a tincture under the tongue or a floating crystal above your forehead than it would be to drink something. And so you just start to reskin, reflavor things as well. But tomorrow we're going to talk about black operations. Yeah, that's the big thing in especially in eclipse phase, and of course flowing into cyberpunk and whatnot with and Shadowrun kind of fits into that realm as well, cyberpunk as well, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. And it kind of fits into the Paladin oath taking thing. The street samurai having their own code of conduct and whatnot. The agents that are in eclipse phase where you're trying to stop the existential ruin of society. So yeah, that'll be for tomorrow. I think I will have time to be able to open up the link pretty soon. So guys, thank you very much. Inflatable Cat and Island of Rob Gaming. Please join me tomorrow. And glad you found me with Red Dice Diaries. Uh, we go back quite a ways, Mr. John Allen and I, and he actually did one of the first reviews of one of my products and whatnot, unsolicited, and I was pretty happy about that. So maybe one of these days we will hook up on like a podcast or something because I think that would be awesome. So anyway, guys, Zach, thanks very much for joining me. Rickard, everybody, really appreciate just. Love the support. Thank you very much for joining in on Prime as well. There, Zach. I don't exactly know what that means, but I'll figure it out. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Spread the word. Everybody, take care. Have a great day. I have to head off to work. You guys, take it easy. I will see thee tomorrow. Bye.